Self-sabotage is when you have two emotional needs that are at odds with each other. Let me repeat, self-sabotage is when you have two emotional needs that are at odds with each other. That's quite a sentence. Let's break it down. First, let's define self-sabotage. Self-sabotage refers to behaviors or thought patterns that undermine personal success or desired outcomes, despite one's own intentions or interests. This can manifest in various ways, such as procrastination, self-doubt, and engaging in harmful habits that prevent individuals from reaching their potential or achieving their goals. Now let's define what an emotional need is. An emotional need is a requirement that, when met, provides individuals with a sense of security, belonging, and well-being. These needs are fundamental for emotional health and development, and they vary widely among individuals. Common examples include the need for love, acceptance, appreciation, safety, and understanding. Meeting these needs is crucial for building and maintaining healthy relationships, achieving personal fulfillment, and fostering emotional stability. Emotional needs are not just desires or wants, but essential aspects of what makes us function healthily in our social and personal lives. So self-sabotage is when you have two emotional needs that are at odds with each other. That's right. It's possible to have emotional needs whereby fulfilling one emotional need would be in direct conflict with another. And this causes us to self-sabotage, keeping us in a state of unhappiness. To really make this clear, I'd like to share my story so you can see how self-sabotage affects someone in real life. As a kid in school, I was deeply lonely. I craved deeper connection with people. I wanted more friendships, and I especially wanted this with some of the attractive girls in my year. But whenever I would remotely get close with someone, I would pull away and go cold. Why? Because I had another emotional need. I was deeply insecure and afraid of people getting to really know me. The thought of emotional intimacy was threatening to me. So my emotional need for social connection was in direct conflict with my emotional need to feel secure. This kept me in an unhappy place for a long time. Let me give another example. At my first job, I noticed a few people suffering the same self-sabotaging behavior. I worked in a factory for a bit. I worked with a guy called Alan. He would always complain about his job. He really resented it. He was disengaged and felt that he could be achieving more. He desired to be more in touch with his potential, but he was too comfortable. He valued familiarity too much. He had lived in the same area all his life, stayed in the very first job he had got, and had been with the same partner since being in school. None of these are bad things at all. It just tells me that Alan values familiarity because familiarity is comfortable and safe. So in Alan's case, leaving a job he resents would mean stepping out of his comfort zone and leaving behind all his social connections and knowledge at his current job and starting again elsewhere. But he continually chooses the emotional need of comfort and belonging, which keeps him suspended in a state of resentment and depression over his job. So hopefully it's clearer to you now how self-sabotage can manifest itself. Maybe it's just occurred to you how you might be self-sabotaging yourself right now. Now that we know what self-sabotage is, let's look at how to overcome it. The first stage of overcoming self-sabotage is to recognize it. I've practiced journaling for over 10 years now. After some time of consistently studying myself, my thoughts and behaviors, I eventually discovered my own self-sabotaging tendencies. The powerful and deadly thing about self-sabotage is that it goes undetected. People are often entirely unaware of how they sabotage themselves. So you need to become more self-aware to recognize your self-sabotaging habits. I would recommend journaling. The next stage of overcoming self-sabotage is to decide. Ask yourself, which emotional need is it in my interest to satisfy? Once you have identified your self-sabotaging behaviors and the two conflicting emotional needs, you need to make a choice. Which emotional need do I want to win? Which one is it in my interest to fulfill? You have conflicting emotional needs, but there's no good running from them. The conflict needs to happen for personal growth. One emotional need has to triumph over the other. Often with conflicting emotional needs, one of your needs is surrounded with quite a negative and fearful belief. In my case, the fear of being too vulnerable was an unfounded negative belief that caused my self-sabotage. In the end, I just needed to push past my anxiety, and once I realized that I was still okay, my previous anxieties melted away. That brings me on to the final stage of overcoming self-sabotage. Courage. People often describe courage as a character trait that someone has. You might say a soldier has great courage. I think it's far more liberating to think of courage as an act. Courage is an act, not a trait. Courage is the act of experiencing fear when trying to complete a task, but taking action despite that fear. When combating your emotional needs, you will need courage. It is likely you will face something that scares you, but the answer is to confront the fear and not to run from it. This forces you to step outside of your comfort zone. Outside of your comfort zone is the zone of growth and personal development. Once you expose yourself to your fears, you realize they were unfounded anyway. A good acronym I like to remember is this. FEAR stands for False Expectations Appear Real. Fear is often an illusion. It's necessary to push past those fears for personal growth. Believe me, if you go on the adventure of tackling each fear you have, that is truly the greatest adventure you can go on. Systematically challenging each of your fears is the most radical, quickest, and most powerful way to grow as a person and to change your life. This has been Tactical Psychology. If you learned something today, please consider subscribing. I focus on teaching you psychology in a way where you can use it in practical ways in your day-to-day life for greater success across all aspects of life.